All right, sorry about that. Had to restart that for some reason. So give it a minute for people to jump on here. Just reposting the link. All right. Yeah, I hit refresh and it lost y'all. But we're back, and hopefully others will join us if we lost them. So we'll go ahead and we'll start. We'll join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. All right, you can put the palms down. Just posting the new link up there real quick. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for tonight's intro to Buddhism and meditation. I always like to start with a little bit of a question, just to get people communicating a little bit and give some time for people to settle in before we start the meditation practice. And so tonight's question is, it'll probably generate a lot of thoughts, but you can summarize maybe your thoughts into some responses. But there's a story that we all tell ourselves, a dialogue that we've been living with, and maybe some of us been telling the same story for years. You know, when you describe yourself to someone or you talk about yourself to yourself, there's that story we always stick to. This is me. This is what's happened to me. This is my life. This is why. And very often we can spend years living and telling that story, when in reality our lives have changed drastically, but we may still be stuck in the same story over and over again. So trying to think of a way to phrase this question, but I guess my question is, how long have you been telling the same story about yourself? Maybe that's an easy way to phrase the question. How long have you been telling yourself this story about yourself? And has it changed at all? Right? Often we tell a story about ourselves that ties us to our childhood or to a moment in our lives that we think defines us. So if you are new to joining us, welcome. There's a chat box there somewhere on your screen. Feel free to type in your responses just as we give a few moments to settle before we do a meditation practice. But do you have a story that you're stuck in or with that you keep telling yourself, and how long have you been telling it? Has it changed at all? You know, we update things daily. We update our look. We update, you know, our hair, our face, makeup, our clothes. We update social media posts and thoughts and comments and feeds and tweets and reels, my new favorite thing. But then there's this story that's been stuck with us for years and years and years, possibly, and we don't change it at all. So maybe you're all pondering, and I haven't seen anybody chime in yet, but feel free. Again, the simple question would be, how long have you been stuck with the same story? Yes, so for some reason I refuse to acknowledge that my story has changed from what I believe it to be. Yeah, so true. And Vicky, that's in many ways the first step is to. I mean, you say you are refusing to acknowledge that your story has changed. Um, that doesn't change your story, but you're at least admitting that you don't even want to acknowledge that it's changed. Sean, good evening. 19 years, same story. That's a long time, my friend. Marisa, I've been working on that story for many years and definitely changes, mostly for the best, but sometimes not, for sure. And we can change our story often. We tell it differently. We kind of check in with where we're at on certain things. So it does change. Chuck, since grade school, for sure. Different covers to the story over the years, but the same story. Yeah, definitely. I think for a lot of people, it's the story of our lives. We go back to grade school and we start creating and crafting the story of who we think we are. Oh man, a long time. And it's been centered around unworthiness, has taken constant contrary action to get out of this old belief. Yeah, that's an important step as well, to recognize what's it centered around and what's the general theme. For you, Michael, it's unworthiness. So maybe the story changes a little bit in how you tell it, but the focus is, old school Wayne's World. I'm not worthy. 50 years. Tom, you're not that old. Come on now. 50 years since childhood, I am changing. Story remains the same. How I view it is different. Yeah, that's another way to look at it too, is that we're telling the same story, but we view it differently. I think the key theme here for me, and the reason I bring this up, is to not get trapped in the story. Give me 1 second. I'll be right there. Excuse me. To not get trapped in that story and thinking that story is exactly who we are, how we are, what we are. The story changes and we change. It took me years to change my story, just a little bit. Definitely. I think if I were to be asked, it would come out to be a lot different than I think it is, for sure. I'm still the weird girl. Well, that's what you tell yourself, maybe, and I think that's probably your point, is that you keep telling yourself that, or maybe you believe it. I don't know. But either way, if, to say I am the weird girl, whose definition is that of ourselves? You may call yourself that, you may view yourself that, you may be stuck with that label you've given yourself for years, but it's never, I would have never given that label or that word to you, Denise. I wouldn't have said, oh yeah, there's Denise, she's that weird girl. So I think that, again, the point is just to recognize how we get stuck on these labels and stories. Denise, how can you be the weird girl? There we go, Cynthia. It's a whole group of weirdos here. All right. So I think I've made my point for now. Grade school teachers told me I was a slow learner. I've told myself all my life that I'm a slow learner. The label is stuck. Yeah, and that's part of the problem, is we get stuck with these labels, whether someone else gave them to us or we give them to ourselves. And that's really why I bring it up, just to remind us, and then we'll start with meditation, that these are all just stories you're telling yourself. So maybe work on abandoning the story, and that's where the meditation really helps. So we'll start with a meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. For those who are new, nothing's going to happen to you. You won't float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is it working? Is it not working? Am I doing this right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, outside, wherever you are. This is life. Life is filled with sounds. And the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the sounds. So posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allowing the shoulders to relax. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap. If you're on a chair, just trying to sit up straight as well. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe for a bit. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. And start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, Recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought. Release that thought. And return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound. Each thought, each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha calls pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where we come from or what we believe in or where we think we're going, our whole life is filled with things that happen. We react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. Most of us respond to meditation often quietly, peacefully, still. The question is, how do we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our day? So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, and focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Meditation is not an escape. It's a direct perception into this present moment. And for me, the practice of meditation is really a huge piece of cutting through the story, as I began tonight with, that you've been telling yourself for so long, that I am this or I am that, or this has happened to me or that's happened to me, or this is the reason I'm here, this is the reason I'm there. A lot of these stories are based on things that actually happened, and I understand that. But the practice of staying present is not allowing those experiences to define who you are, but to learn from them, to grow from them, and to appreciate this moment, because this is it. Your entire life, this moment. The stories we tell, there's to me, a great metaphor, and I love pizza, so it makes it easy, but you take a bite of pizza and somebody says, what does it taste like? And you start describing it. Now, describing what the pizza tastes like is not what the pizza tastes like. It's just your perception and your story around what it tastes like. The only way to know what it tastes like is to take a bite. And for me, the Zen practice is exactly that. It's just taking a bite each moment of what life has in front of you, and not getting wrapped up in this constant story. This is not easy. This is a challenge. For me, this practice that I'm talking about right now has been the most productive, I would say, in cutting through my own past anger, depression, misery. Learning to be with life as it comes is a challenge, but it's what's actually happening. So at a very basic level, we can continue to live in a story that doesn't exist, or we can learn to live in what's actually happening. And in each moment, there's plenty of moments to enjoy them and dislike them and be comfortable with them and have an aversion to them. But at least we're experiencing things as they arise in the moment, not things that happened 25 years ago. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop. I always prefer just to allow time for you all to ask questions. Anything around meditation, Buddhist practice, teachings that I can address. If you are new, again, welcome. There's a chat box there. Feel free to type in your question, and I'll go ahead and respond. So we'll use the rest of the time tonight for that. Can you talk more about pratitya samuppada, dependent origination? Yeah, it's there's a couple. Well, there's more than a couple. There's a lot of ways to look at it. In many ways, it's a law of cause and effect, which often is karma. But it's recognizing that each moment arises, and every moment is contingent upon the moment prior to that. So nothing happens without something happening before it. And what that creates is this, to me, this very deep understanding that everything is contingent upon something else for its existence. And therefore, everything is an illusion. We think something is exactly this, and we experience in this moment what it is. But so much has happened prior to this moment. And ironically enough, what I was talking about earlier is that we take everything that's happened and we create a story out of that, and we think that story is real. But the only thing that's real is this moment. But even this moment is an illusion because it's different from how we perceive it to be, thus the pizza metaphor I used. Think of it this way. Another, I think, metaphor to understand dependent origination is think of a wooden chair. And so the question is, when does the chair no longer become a chair? If you take the legs off of it, is it still a chair? If you take one leg, 2 legs, 3 legs, 4 legs, maybe it's a chair with 12 legs. At what moment in time do we start or stop defining the chair? Or do we just experience it in each moment? Most of us don't understand, or I should say, we don't look at situations and think about the endless causal relationship that had to happen for that chair to exist. So we may just use a chair, but we don't think about the fact that the wood chair came from the tree came from the earth, it grew from the water and the sun and everything else. Somebody cut it down, somebody made it into a chair, somebody worked to distribute that chair to your home right now. There are endless causes and conditions, endless people and places and things that have transpired for that chair to exist. But we often just see a chair, we walk up and we sit down. Dependent origination, to me, the way I understand it is understanding that everything is conditioned and contingent upon something else for its existence. That's why I always say things happen, we react. More things happen, more reactions. This is our life. But we think that's what's happening is everything. And we often lose sight of all the factors that played into what led us to this moment. It can get, I think, a little bit sound almost contradictory to a lot of what I was saying earlier, where I'm talking about just experience the present moment as it is. And to me, the practice really is about experiencing the present moment, but understanding all of the conditions that had to happen for that present moment to be there. So it relates to the idea of emptiness. At what point does a car become a car? Yeah, there's a lot of metaphors around the emptiness thing, the cars, the houses, the chairs, how many parts coming together equal a car. Yeah, it's very easy to get lost in, and those are a lot of the kind of modern day textbook metaphors that we've all heard and we all throw out there. The cars and the houses and the chairs and things like that. I like to look at dependent origination, again, karma, the law of cause and effect, as an endless series of causes and conditions that create each moment. So I don't know. Hopefully that's helpful. So sorry, Miss. Hello, Janet. Glad you can join us. Don't worry, you didn't miss much. I say the same thing every time. So yeah, Michael, I think you're right on there. Sean, where would you recommend I start learning about Buddhism? Are there any books you'd recommend? I'm here because I've started writing a news story. I think there's a reason I'm here right now. So a couple of things. One, you obviously are starting to learn about Buddhism. You're here. So I'm glad you're here, Sean. This is an introduction to Buddhism and meditation. I've been calling it that for, I don't know, the last 10 or 12 years that I've been leading it. And I don't think that, we used to always joke and say we called it intro to Buddhism, but to me, there's no intermediate, there's no advanced course. Buddhist practice is ultimately learning about yourself. So it's taking what the Buddha taught and reflecting back on your own sense of self and pride and ego and all of these things that cause our suffering, right? You've probably come across the Four Noble Truths. That's the heart, really the first teaching and what all of Buddhist teachings comes from, that life is filled with dukkha. That's number one, that we struggle and suffer a lot. The second one is the cause. And this is the three poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. The third one is the ending of suffering. This is nirvana and liberation. And the fourth one is the path that leads to the ending of suffering, which is the Eightfold Path. And that's having correct views and thoughts and speech and action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. So this is basically our moral, ethical conduct and behavior. So as far as where to learn, there's so many places to learn. The internet's a great place. Obviously, just kind of Google beginner Buddhism. You'll come across some stuff. A great intro to Buddhism book I find is Lotus in the Stream. It's out of print, but you can get it on Amazon. And it has all the core teachings, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, karma, dependent origination, rebirth, all these types of things in about 10 to 15 pages. I'm a big fan of that book, always have been, for kind of just learning the core teachings. Another one for me is Zen Mind, Beginner Mind, which, again, I'm biased as a Zen practitioner, but I find that the heart of the Zen practice really is beautiful for cutting through, as I said earlier, the pride and the ego and the sense of self. You say here that you've started writing a new story, which is beautiful. But I'll give you something to think about. Don't don't worry about writing a new story. Um, when I brought up the idea of the story that we're stuck in, I didn't say anything about creating a new story. I didn't say anything about creating a different story. I just said that we're stuck in a story and we've been telling ourselves a story for a long time. So I understand in a conversation, very practical sense, the meaning behind writing a new story, kind of turning a new page and rebuilding your life or whatever that means to you. I think in essence, creating a new story is beautiful. I think in the heart of what you mean by it, but my suggestion for me coming from a Buddhist lens is don't worry about creating any story whatsoever. Just live your life. So learn to practice generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom. Learn to go, minimize suffering by practicing compassion, wisdom, generosity. Practice these things, put these things into your life on a day-to-day basis. And if you do all of those things, that will create a new story, as you say. But if we get stuck in the writing of a new story, then 2 years from now, we'll be stuck in the story we're writing right now, and that won't be the right story either. So for me, this practice is not writing a story at all, but just living our lives. And Sean, again, we're obviously all virtual here. We opened the Dharma Bums 14 years ago with the approach that we wanted to make Buddhism accessible in a Western culture for people that were new to Buddhism and would maybe be intimidated or have a hard time learning at cultural Buddhist temples due to language barriers and things like that. So, I've found the Dharma Bum community to be a really beautiful place for beginners to learn Buddhism, as well as people who've been at it for a long time and just continue to struggle and practice. So Lotus in the Stream and Zen Mind, Beginner Mind, I think, are two great books. So I hope that's helpful, Sean. Glad you're here. Chuck, a few days ago, I was listening to physics lecture discussing time. He described the present just as you just did. The present and the immediate past actually comprise of the present. Well, wonderful. So are you saying I just gave a physics lecture? Thanks, Chuck. I missed seeing your hand at the meditation hall. Glad you're here. Not to interrupt this discussion. Sorry. Oh, no problem, Sean. You're not interrupting anything. Marisa, welcome, Sean. New chapter, yes. Understanding what you mean. Great thought. Great point. Thank you. You are welcome. Chuck, yes. Good. Physics. I don't even think I ever took a physics class. Pretty sure I never did. Psychology major. 4 years of college. I don't think I had to take physics. Lucky me, I guess. I don't know. Super helpful. Thank you. I'm going to pick them up. Beautiful. Not that I'm biased, Sean, but Buddha for You, which is the Dharma Bum Temple gift shop, has Zen Mind, Beginner Mind. And you can buy those online and have it shipped or picked up. So just check out Buddha for You. Actually, it's a lot of good kind of all the books there really are picked and geared towards people who are learning about Buddhism. So the Zen Mind, Beginner Mind is just my personal preference. It's a math class pretending to be a science class. All right, other questions? We'll do one more before we wrap up here. We got started a little late. I had link trouble. Quantum is so, all right, now you're losing me. Yes, quantum. That's my preferred types of physics, the quantum type. Definitely. I do know there's a lot of Einstein stuff about relating to Buddhist teachings. So for all those smart people out there, physics and Einstein and the Buddha, I think we're all onto something. Yes, quantum physics. It's my preferred method of physics. When is the next session? So I lead every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. and Saturday at 11. Janet, same times as always, right here on YouTube. And then we have classes, and I was announce this at the end, but Dharma Bum Temple, our full schedule, which we've always had, is still the same. Just virtual, whether it's on YouTube here, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, or the rest is on Zoom. So, but I do Tuesday night, Thursday, and Saturday morning. Glad you joined us, Janet. Any other kind of last question here around meditation, Buddhism, physics, anything else I can address this evening before we wrap up? All right. Well, this will be the first Dharma talk I've ever ended, where the last thing I discussed was quantum physics, dynamics, string theory, that kind of stuff. So we'll join palms and we'll close. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. So a few quick announcements before y'all head off. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 14 years ago to bring Buddhism and meditation to local folks. Those of us who lead, we're not monks or nuns or gurus or masters. We're not teachers and we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. So we do our best to take our unenlightened views of the Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to all of you who show up. So thanks for showing up. As I just alluded to, our classes are now online. We've been closed since March 12th. So it's been quite a while. But we, like everybody else, is doing the best we can during these difficult, crazy times. So about 90% of our classes are online. Our Recovery Sangha has 4 or 5 classes a week. Our morning meditation every Monday through Friday, 8 and 8:30. Our evening schedule, our weekend schedule. We have our family Sangha. Hopefully we'll start up again soon. Our college group, our teenage group every Sunday at noon. If you have teenagers, if you know teenagers, it's a beautiful group that's led by Delta Beta Tau, our college Buddhist fraternity. So that's every Sunday at noon. I think that's about it. So if I never see you again, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That's really the heart of this practice. Please stay home as much as possible. Be safe, wear a mask. I found it to be a beautiful practice to do things that don't bring harm to others. So this is a good time to practice that. So I appreciate you all being here. This is for many a very beautiful week. It's also a very challenging, difficult week, and even more so during these COVID times. So let's be safe. I wish you all well, and that you hopefully find gratitude in everything that's in your life.